Wellness Show, episode 136.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyhson Banighen, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. Welcome to the Wellness Show, and we have a return visit with Nenari, the Princess of the Sea, and today we're going to talk about all sorts of interesting things about time loops, which hopefully helps us not get lost in space and time and helps us find our way home. So, Nenari, welcome back to the show. So where are you and what's up in your life? Let's start with that.
Well, I'm currently still in England. I've been traveling about, heading to Scotland in another week or so, and getting ready to launch a course, actually.
Wow. So what course are you going to launch?
Soul Mediumship. I've had a lot of people who have been asking me, can you teach me to do what you do? As far as channeling, bringing through God, source, whatever you choose to call such, and reading the Akasha and doing soul sessions, soul readings and whatnot. And so I put together a 6-week online course, and then I'm also going to be teaching it throughout the UK. So.
Wow, great. So have you taught this before? Is this brand new for you or what?
This is brand new in terms of the course. I mean, I've been doing this my whole life.
Yeah.
But as far as the actual course, yeah, it is new in the sense of me sitting down and putting it together with, specific exercises and love missions and things of that nature related to it to help people to come into doing the work that I do. So yeah, it is new in that sense.
So when does it start?
I'm looking to launch it this weekend, actually. Hopefully Easter Sunday, if not on the Monday.
Right. Well, this show will be afterwards, but will people be able to join it late, or is that possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll be running it every 6 weeks. So if you're not able to get in for the first, 6 weeks, you can most certainly get into the next one. So I'll be running it every 6 weeks. So.
Great. Sounds exciting. And I'm sure that there's a bridge from that to what we're going to talk about today. So take us through the bridge or over the bridge.
Well, actually, you're quite right, because the first part of the course, in week 1, we're actually going to be talking about, in part, about vibration and frequency and about timelines and timeline loops and all of that kind of juicy stuff.
So what are timelines? And I mean, I pretty well think I know what timelines are, but what are loops? Are those reoccurring patterns that keep happening from the past to the present? Tell us more.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And it's also happening on a multidimensional consciousness. So if you're experiencing something being stuck here in this life, chances are you have it in other dimensions as well. And a lot of us, especially those who are probably going to be watching this in terms of light workers, we have a lot of mutated DNA that is meant to be transformed into the RNA, which kind of goes back to our last conversation the last time I was on with you, having to do with meditational hypnosis. So it's kind of all interconnected and all interlinked, entwined. And what happens necessarily is when you get stuck in a timeline loop, it is usually due to programming from this life or another life. And you end up, it's almost as if you end up doing, if anyone has seen that, or if you have seen the movie Groundhog Day, where you repeat the same circle over and over and over again. And I think it was Einstein, if I remember right, said the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that's kind of the basis of that.
Yeah, so we really do that an awful lot. We get stuck in a time loop. I guess when we use tape recorders, it made sense to us. Probably when we talk about endless loops repeating, we're on CDs now and other technologies, so it doesn't quite have the same impact. But an endless loop keeps running in our mind, and we wonder why we're stuck on that loop, sort of like the hamster on the wheel. So, and that I guess brings us back to your whole work in hypnosis, which is but taking a person in a descent into consciousness to find that loop and bring it to an end. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And that can be done subconsciously, but there's two different sides to this coin. One is the subconscious work that you are meant to do, and then also it's the conscious work in your daily life. And it's literally about making a different choice. And in some cases, depending on how stuck you are, it sometimes means literally forcing yourself, in a sense, from a conscious perspective, to choose a different path. And then being aware of the residual energy effect as well that occurs when you choose that new path.
So let's talk about both of those separately so we don't get confused. So with your clients, I'm assuming you do with the subconscious first, right? To help do the release.
Actually, I do both. I do both, and I do both at the same time. One of the things that that people are going to be learning in this new course on soul mediumship is actually something that Source has given me is called being bilocal. So in other words, you can do actually both essences at the same time. In the best way you can kind of describe this actually is almost as if you're having like an out-of-body experience where you're the observer on one hand doing the subconscious work, and then on the other hand, there's the work that's being done consciously. And so I teach people how to actually do that as well.
Wow. So running them both the same. So can you give us an example of how that might look like?
Okay, so like when I'm doing a session with somebody, if I'm soul channeling what's coming through about, let's say, a past life, as we call them, although we know all of our lives are being living right now, right here, all at once, right, multidimensionally speaking. Say I'm tuning into that frequency and vibration having to do with this specific life in which this person has anger issues, and they're actually fine in this life. So it's a subconscious program, and I'm basically sharing with them consciously, okay, here's the details about X, Y, Z, A, B, C of this life. And at the same time, I am, in essence, outside of my body or being bilocal and doing the subconscious work with them on a soul level. And then also, if I'm doing a recorded session, I do that in embedding those frequencies as well, so that when they receive the recorded session, they're receiving it. Now, some people prefer to do this like out loud. And this is part of what I teach in this new course as well. You can like literally say, okay, I'm calling forth Archangel Michael, or I'm calling forth source energy to transform the energy and consciousness of this. You can literally say this and do both in that sense. But it's more beneficial to actually tune in on a soul essence while you're giving the details simultaneously of this life, because that way you're not necessarily freaking somebody out. Because sometimes if you say, oh, yeah, if you say, oh, I'm calling forth Archangel Michael with the sword of light, people are going to look at you like, what?
Right.
So it gives a little bit more comfort and a little bit ease to be able to do it that way.
So let's see if I've got that right. So what you're saying is when you're working with a client, you are doing both simultaneously. You're going to the soul level to see where the root of the problem is, for lack of better words, and you're channeling that, or it's coming from source, and you're calling in whatever divine energies are necessary to free that up. And at the same time, you're carrying on a conversation with the client about what's going on with them in the present, while you're doing this work in the back end, so to speak, or the back office. And you're calling in the divine energies to assist you. And sometimes you're guided to talk about the backstory, and sometimes you're guided not to, depending on whether the client's ready to hear that or can process it.
Correct. The only thing I would add to that is that what you're doing in essence is you're channeling God or source energy and also reading the Akasha. So that's what I'm doing when I'm doing this, and this is what I subsequently am teaching in this new course, because it's both and.
Right.
You can get what you need to get from source, but we all have a soul blueprint. And that soul's blueprint is kind of like if you look at a blueprint for a house. Okay, this window goes here and the door goes here and whatnot. Well, our soul has a blueprint as well. And so it's very similar in that sense of, okay, we're going over here to have this life here and this life there, and we're doing this and we're experiencing that. And oh, we have this soul agreement, and that kind of thing. And so I'm bringing that through, which is through accessing the Akasha as well, or Akashic record. Yeah.
So what do you do to open the door to the Akashic? Do you actually do a prayer, or is it now automatic with you, or do you what gives you the keys to the library, so to speak?
Well, it's interesting. For me personally, I've been doing it my whole life. My earliest physical remembering of doing such was at the age of 6. When I was zoning out the priest in Catholic church on Sundays. I was raised Catholic. I call myself a recovering Catholic. And so I wouldn't pay attention to whatever the priest was doing, but I would be seeing loved ones crossed over. I'd be seeing auras. I'd be channeling God or source and accessing the Akasha. So for me, it's being like instantaneous. It just is. It's just there. I don't need a quote unquote prayer or anything else. But in the teaching of the course, I actually show how to do an invocation type prayer to access, so that way people get into the modality of actually practicing that, to then when it becomes second nature, they can just tune in. Like for right now, what we're doing here, I'm a living and being what I call the encyclopedia of the Akasha, for lack of a better word, and of source. This is 24/7. This is my life.
Right.
I don't make a distinguishing. Yeah, I don't make a distinguishing between, okay, I'm in channel now, and then I'm out of channel, and I'm going to go about the rest of my life and do X, Y, Z. This is who I am. I'm the embodiment of it.
Right. Well, that must be difficult at times. For most empaths, one of the things that I'm always working with them is learning how to install an on-off button, or at least a rheostat to turn it up and turn it down. And so the mind, and the body, actually the body, not the mind, can relax. So it's not running multiple channels intergalactically and, from all sorts of dimensions simultaneously. So have you got that rheostat installed, or a cosmic switch so you're not running it 24/7, or are you a 24/7 nonstop channel?
I'm a 24/7 nonstop channel. For me, it's so integrated within me that I don't go or anything like that at any time. About the only thing that I could say honestly really occurs is things of the nature of, if I have to go to the washroom or something like that, and I'm in the middle of channeling something and typing away or whatnot, it's like, okay, fine, but then I come back and I pick it right back up.
Right.
So I don't necessarily have an on-off button. It's just so integrated in me. Now, for most people, though, who are going to be learning how to do this, like you said, they do require that on-off button, because it's such a high frequency, for lack of a better word. In soul, there is no higher or lower. But from an earthly perspective, it is such a high frequency that it can fry you if you don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, and that was the next thing. So obviously you've had all 12 strings of DNA activated, and did you come through that way, or there was a conscious time in which that activation occurred, or did somebody assist you, or how did it happen for you?
Well, I came here with all of that wired and ready to go, for one thing. But what actually happened, and again, this kind of also goes into my new course, but also meditational hypnosis in the sense of the RNA, because most people do not know about RNA. They just know about the DNA. So my DNA was completely wired. Now, I had specific mutations in that DNA that were to be transformed into the soul essence, or the RNA. And so that was the process that I really went through. A lot of that had to do with old soul agreements, having to do with family issues, addictions, not my addictions, but addictions within my family of origin that I was a party to, so to speak, because being in the family, that things having to do with abuse and whatnot, things that needed to be shed. And that last spurt, if you will, of shifting into the RNA, where I could say I had the freak out of what we were just talking about, in the sense of you're channeling so much light at one time that you can actually go, woo!
Light up like a Christmas tree.
Exactly. And I had that experience, actually. It was about 20 years ago now. I think it was like 18 or so years ago. I was actually in a supermarket, and I had just come off of, the prelude to this was I was severely ill. I was actually ill in bed for about 4 months straight. And when I finally started to be able to start becoming human again, and this was when I was receiving the download, is when I was ill, of this light energy. I had gone into a supermarket, and if you can imagine, it was a pretty busy day. I think it was probably a Friday or something. And there's 200, 300, 400 people in the supermarket. And if any of your listeners or you have seen The Matrix, you know how The Matrix has all that energy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm seeing that. Yeah, I'm seeing that for all the lives of the people who are in the supermarket on all the dimensions, multi-dimensions, parallel universes. And I went, oh my God, I was completely freaked out. I left my food there at the grocery store, and I went home and crawled under the bed and going, what in the world just happened here?
Right.
So that part had to integrate within me, and it took only actually a few hours, because a few hours later, I'm in the kitchen and I'm cleaning, and I hear the message from Source, welcome to the re-remembering of this last part of your gift, of the shift of the mutated DNA into the RNA. And it was like, whoa, okay. And then the integration process of that, I mean, it was like when I was being a child, you know, it was just instantaneous. A lot of people go through what we call ascension symptoms and a lot of issues in that realm of integrating things like that. But for me, it was just boom. It was almost as if, okay, I'm here on a mission. And, you know, this also goes with the walk-in that I went through as well, being a walk-in. And so it was just, it just was. There wasn't anything that I really needed to integrate.
Well, let's go back to the DNA and the RNA. This is sort of a new concept to me. So tell me about that. What do you mean by the DNA? Are you saying that the DNA literally reconfigures the RNA so that it becomes more humanly accessible, or explain that to me? I don't quite grasp it.
Okay, well, actually, it's kind of the opposite. RNA came first.
Okay.
RNA is our soul essence, okay?
Yeah.
And RNA actually holds the soul's blueprint. Remember, we were talking earlier about the soul's blueprint, okay?
Yeah.
So the DNA will then carry that blueprint through.
Right.
Okay. And so there's mutations of the DNA that happen that keep you from being your soul essence.
Got it. So that would be your lineage, your family of origin, your cultural biases, and all the good things you picked up by coming to planet Earth, this lifetime and past lifetimes.
Exactly. And so what you are doing in essence is rewriting the program of the mutated DNA and transforming it into who you really are, which is the soul's blueprint. So this is also huge.
What little I know about that, I understand that, rewriting DNA DNA gets rewritten through major events, through strong emotions like near-death experiences or sexual abuse or anything traumatic that literally causes almost like a soul fracture to happen, or a core fracture or toxic emotion can actually rewrite the DNA. So it has to do with the emotional intensity of the experience. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, although I kind of refine that a bit. Actually, first of all, there's a difference between emotion and feelings. And I talk about this in my new course, as well as in the meditational hypnosis course in brief, because it's important. The other thing is that it actually doesn't rewrite the DNA, a traumatic event. It actually triggers the mutated DNA that's already there.
Oh, okay, great.
So we actually come here with mutated DNA. Most people don't realize that, and that is old traumas, old wounds, all of those things from other lives in other dimensions that we're to bring forth here to transform, to transmute. And then as we age, from the time we're a baby, we have traumas and events and whatnot that also trigger those mutated DNAs. So then what happens is that if we are embroiled in, like you were talking about, the emotions or energy in motion, we actually make that mutated DNA worse.
Right.
So to get into what is actual feeling, and this is the difference between emotion and feeling. Emotions are things like anger, hurt, pain, sadness, even happiness. Feeling, though, and we've usually mixed up the two, but feeling is about sensing. It's about inner knowing. tapping into the inner knowing of who you really are from the soul perspective, that intuition. That's really what feeling is. We often mix the two up, but it's not. They're two completely different things. And feeling is actually what helps to rewrite the RNA.
Wow.
The DNA
Right.
into the RNA.
Yeah, so you're really rewriting the English language too. So at the same time, because that's really a new definition of feeling. It makes perfect sense to me. So let's see if I've got this. So the RNA is your soul pattern. This is your cosmic blueprint, which you brought in, and that has, and when that has the potentiality of being foremost. In other words, it has the ability of being on, which is receiving guidance, that is powered up, let's call it powered up or online, then it has the ability to rewrite or reconfigure or release the trauma in the DNA, which has come from whatever has been the experience that's from this lifetime or past lifetimes or family of origin or whatever. Am I getting this right?
Absolutely, you got it. And to kind of expand a little further on the mutated DNA, those emotions and the mutated DNA that is the result of it is what I have called, that has channeled through me from Source for this course, the gluten. Now, we all know about earthly gluten. When we eat gluten, you know, how it affects the body. And actually, we have already within us a certain amount of gluten when we are born. But eating more of it actually produces what? An allergic reaction 9 times out of 10. Either we have weight gain or we have whatever, you know, physical health issues, irritable bowel syndrome, things of that nature. So this is actually the gluten or the ton of glue that has you stuck, right? These emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, almost like the pin through the butterfly is the feeling I get. I mean, it can really, really almost bring you to a halt.
Yes, absolutely. And then what it also does is it goes back to what we were talking about. It creates these timeline loops.
Right.
And the inability or the perceived inability to get out of that stuckness, that timeline loop. And so choosing another choice from both subconscious level as well as conscious level, which becomes what's known as the super conscious, which is God, source, when you're actually choosing from that place, then transformation into the soul's blueprint of the RNA can occur.
Right. So the key point here is choice, is that we have a choice in every moment with every thought, word, deed, and action, which is the Buddhistic principles, right? Of that you know, it's right in this now moment. It's not tomorrow. It's not yesterday. It isn't in the past. It's all in the now. So in the Tao, we talk about, you know, one's true nature, which is, you know, the divine coming through. And then we talk about human consciousness, which is, you know, caught up in the endless time loops of, you know, trying to figure things out. And at every moment you have that choice. Are you going to come from your true nature, or you're going to come from human mind consciousness? So how would you translate it into the terminology that you use?
Well, I actually agree with everything you said.
Okay, great.
And choice is actually the key. It really is.
Absolutely.
Rather than decision. And this is where I would add what has come through from Source with me, is when we make a decision, we cut off all possibility.
Yeah, because it's from the mind, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's rational. What we're talking about is totally different. This is a choice between two ways of showing up in the world. In this new course, Finding a Force, we're talking about, you know, we need a new operating system for planet Earth. So the old one is the default, which is the human mind, which says you got to work hard, show up, get a livelihood, blah, blah, and behave yourself and fit in. The new one is no, you're coming from true source guidance. Every moment could be full of infinite possibilities. There is no one choice, but you will be given the right choice in the moment. And if it isn't the right choice, guess what? There's another one after that and another one after that. But it does allow you to make that first step in the new operating system.
Yes, I fully agree with you. And I'm glad you touched on that. There's another choice and another choice and another choice. There's a special group that I'm on Facebook for a dear friend of mine who is in Sedona, who is the spiritual leader for the Unity Church there. And he's developed this private group for all of us to be able to actually share. And there was a gentleman who came forth and who was asking a question just about what you were talking about. You know, he felt like all the opportunities had passed him, evidently, and that there wasn't a room to choose. And so I was sharing with him that, yes, you actually have. And if you don't necessarily do it in this life, you'll come back to do that, unless you're like myself, who's a last lifer, not coming back to this earth anymore. But in his case, he is, you know, and when you do that, you can be in a place of relaxation with it and going, oh, okay. You know, he was completely freaking out thinking, you know, oh, I'm never going to have this chance again. No, you're given infinite choices. And that infinite choice comes, as you were saying, God first, source first.
Right.
And so that's one of the big teaching principles of my new course as well. So we're going to be like in alignment here. I think that's fantastic.
That's why it's exciting to talk to you, because, you know, where else can we have these sorts of conversations and help other people understand what it is that we're here for, both you and I. And when we're part of the Planetary cleanup crew as we move from one operating system to a newer one. So we're helping people make this bridge. So for anybody on this call, if you're showing up on planet Earth and you wonder why you're not fitting in, and it doesn't make any sense to you, never did, and it never will, guess what? You weren't supposed to fit in. So relax, let go. Know there's a new operating system, and both of us are here to help you understand what that is, and how to have a life of ease and grace, how to step in the truth of who you are, how to deliver your divine gifts to the world. So that's what we're really talking about. How are these techniques and abilities for you to really come through in the shining light that you're here to be? So anyway, back to the conversation we're having. But this is really, really important stuff for us right now, especially for light workers, because what used to work for them in manifesting no longer works. So this is, you know, that way of manifesting and working hard is dead in the water for those that are on a spiritual path. And so poverty is pretty scary for a lot of them. I mean, they're here to do service and they're here to help other people, but they can't rub two nickels together. So for you people as well, know that this new operating system has nothing to do with trying to make a job happen or finding clients. It has to do with showing up, making a choice like we're talking about that will take you to the next choice, and you know that it will be working, or you know that it's working when it comes with ease and grace, and each step is presented to you. You don't have to worry, like we just said. It's just like how we can let go because we're being guided. You can just step into the infinite grace of it all, and it becomes effortless. And guess what? That's our birthright. So yeah, this is an important conversation. So I really, really appreciate it coming from two different perspectives, one male, one female. This is critically important for people to understand. Be gentle on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. And I love the fact that we have the divine masculine and divine feminine energy here going on, that we are able to come together in co-creation, because as you were saying, it's this new paradigm that we're in, the new earth that we're in, the new operating system of love is what I would call it, if anything, is not about competition. It's not about it's about co-creation. It's not about competition or, you know, what can I get out of it, or, you know, all of these paradigms that have been here prevalent on this earth for so long. And people are noticing that. And, you know, jealousy, it's just, you know, all that kind of stuff. I just recently had a situation that happened of the old paradigm, and talking about the timeline loops and, you know, choosing a different path. I wasn't necessarily choosing the different path in this sense. It just made me aware of the path that somebody else is meant to. This situation was of a spiritual center that's not too far from where I'm at. And I was looking to actually teach my course there at one point. And I had seen a post on this Facebook page of the center requesting, from a woman requesting something having to do with crystals. Now, I have a very dear friend of mine who I'm actually staying with at the moment, bless her, and she's all about crystals. And so I tagged her in this post with that cooperation, the co-creation vibe of, you know, we all get to help, right? This woman felt completely threatened. She was completely in ego. Oh, why are you taking away my client kind of thing? And I'm thinking, there's almost 8 billion of us on the planet. My God, you know, where is this coming from? And so she has the opportunity to choose another choice. And me, I had written to her and I said, look, I'm not coming from that place at all. I'm coming from co-creation. We have all pieces of the puzzle, every one of us, and we're all here to help each other. And she wouldn't have anything of it.
I'm just going to interrupt it. We're just ending the half-hour part of the show, and I hope you've all enjoyed it. And stay tuned for part 2 because we're about to do that right now. So welcome back to the show. It's great to have you back with part 2. And in the former one, we were discussing that this is not the time of competition. This is time for unity consciousness. This is time for co-creation. This is time for letting go of the past and looking forward to the future and learning how to live, work, and play together. This is a time of community of like-minded people, community of place, eco-villages. All of that is what's about to be birthed on the planet. So I'm excited for this new time. It's almost like rebirthing the 70s all over with the planet catching up in consciousness to allow it to happen.
Absolutely, I agree. 60s and 70s, I would say, being a 60s child.
70s. Yeah, don't forget the 60s. The 70s had no sense whatsoever without the 60s, absolutely.
Oh, come on, my disco days, come on.
Right, okay. Yeah, let's go with it. Yeah. So, yes, in the former one, we were talking about time loops, RNA, DNA, and how that it can help us rewrite our DNA by our RNA, by our God consciousness, by our divinity of who we are, and how we can show up with ease and grace in this new operating system on planet Earth. So you were talking about moving from that, you know, using the example of the person who felt that they were in competition. So were you able to help her to move from competition into cooperation, or she couldn't do that?
She was in a place where she wasn't able to go there, and that's all right. That's where she's at in her consciousness. However, the door has been invited to be open because what I shared with her in my letter gave her the opportunity to make that choice if she chooses to at another time. And that's really what's important, because not everybody is going to be wanting to do this. The willingness to shift is very key. And then the willingness to be able to handle the residual energy of the old timeline when it comes up. Because when we make that choice, okay, I'm choosing a different path now, there's going to be residual energy from that old path that's going to come creeping up. And it almost feels like
it can be coming like crashing waves.
Exactly, right? And I've had that happen. I definitely have. And it's really, from an earthly perspective, it feels like a test. You're thinking, oh my God, you know, kind of thing. But really what it is, it's the soul realigning itself, again, the DNA into the RNA. And so there is going to be that residual energy, just like when you pluck the string on a guitar. It still reverberates after you pluck it. It doesn't just all of a sudden stop, right? So it's understanding that there's these residual energies and then riding the wave. And the biggest way to ride the wave is calmness, centeredness, and relaxation.
Right. Letting
because
go.
9 times out of 10, absolutely, because 9 times out of 10, what's happening is our sympathetic nervous system is actually getting hijacked. And we end up flipping our lid because we're in fight, flight, or freeze mode. And when we're coming from that place, that's not God-centered consciousness. That's not Christ consciousness. That's not source itself. And then we're not able to think clearly or see clearly and not able to handle stress or anxiety. So it's very, very important that we remain in that calm, centered space, even amidst crisis, even amidst the residual energies when we make that choice. But the number one thing first, though, is willingness. Because if you are not willing to shift a timeline, just like in this case with this woman, at that time, she may choose again later, but at that moment that it happened, she chose not to shift. And if someone isn't willing, there isn't anything you can do as a healer, as a reader, anything in that sense.
Well, it's sort of interesting because the crisis that one meets by not choosing the new timeline can lead to, disorder, disease, and death, as we know, downward spiral pretty quickly, because we're not being allowed to continue in the old paradigm. But in the new paradigm, as we move into it, like you were saying, you go through, what would you call it, the new symptoms, or that come from the upgrade, or however you want to describe it, ascension symptoms. And that can lead or feel like a near-death experience. It can take you to your knees as well. So for those of you that are in the midst of that, and I know you've been there fairly recently, stick with it, because you're just having your whole body, your structure, literally realigned from the tip of your toes to the top of your head. You're literally being realigned to run light, to allow this new energy to flow through you. And that means all of what is in the way that you have not let go of needs to be released from the system. So maybe you could talk a bit about, from your perspective, what that means. And certainly, I know you've just been through that, right?
Yes, absolutely. I lovingly call it, as Source has given it to me, the spiritual 2x4.
Wow.
It hits you upside the head. And usually you hear it as a whisper, at first, and then it gets louder and louder, and as you don't listen and do not choose that new timeline, and shift into that resonance of choosing that, it will hit you over the head. I did recently experience that a little over a year ago. I literally died. I had my 12th near-death experience in this life. And actually, for me, it was a completion. When I left, I didn't want to come back. I was complete. In fact, I spent time on the other side with Wayne Dyer, who had just recently, a year before, what have you, had crossed over. And, he had said to me, in those days before, looking back on it now, being in spirit, I can see, I was done. I was complete, and I felt the same way. And he and I shared that same resonance. And so coming back, it was like, oh my God, what the F am I doing here? Why am I back? And so it took a long time to really integrate that back in. And so, yes, people can make it without literally dying like I did, can make it into that if they are struggling with it. And the easiest way, again, goes back to what I was saying a little while ago, which means coming from that place of relaxation, that openness. I often call it the I don't know-ness.
Right.
The humbleness of God. It's you come to Source or God, Spirit, Master Artist, whatever you choose to call such, and you're just like, I don't know. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what I'm still doing here on this earth. I don't know my purpose. Everything's falling around me. Show me.
Yeah, surrender.
Guide. Total surrender. Absolutely.
Into thy hands I commend my soul.
Absolutely. And perfect timing being that, we're doing this now on this particular weekend, whenever this airs. It's like it becomes the resurrection in the Christ consciousness. From a religious perspective, we know with the Bible and whatnot of, Jesus's path. But really what it's designed to show us is about the Christ consciousness path, and that surrender that he had, in the sense of then dying. So you die to the ego, you die to that old self, and in your upgrade, you are then resurrected. You're rejuvenated, because that's actually what rejuvenation is, actually what RNA can stand for. Radiant nexus alignment, or rejuvenation. It's the rejuvenation of the body and the soul. So you receive this upgrade, and once you've received that upgrade, man, I tell you, it's bliss.
Yes.
It's not to say you don't still have issues in your life. You still have issues in your life. But going back to what we were talking about, the Buddhist philosophy, Buddha showed this to us very, very well, because he lived the extremes. He lived being, with everything and having everything that his father gave him. And then he went to being an ascetic, and he had nothing. He even almost literally starved himself to death.
Right.
Enlightenment, Christ consciousness is about balance. So it's not that Buddha didn't ever have anything happen to him once he achieved enlightenment. He still had Mara show up. the dark side, the shadow would show up, but it was how he handled it. And so when you receive this upgrade to this new operating system, you're able to handle it through a flow because you're connected to source, you're connected to God, and you surrender it to God immediately. There's no angst or anxiety or, doubt or anything else. You just immediately go to God or source and you say, okay, help me. And I've had that happen several times in the last year or so since I have had this step, and immediately something comes through. I mean, within hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's in the biblically, that's, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, my rod and my sword accompany me, which is the rod, the rod being your, Kundalini fully activated and enlightened, right? That when you have that connection to source, you don't really need a sword, but it is the sword of truth, which is the word of God, not the sword or it's Archangel Michael's sword, but it's a different sword. It's not a weapon. It's cutting through what no longer serves you. And here we are. We're on having this conversation on Good Friday. I mean, what could be better than that? And
how good is that?
Yeah, how good is that? I mean, and yes, the resurrection has been in every culture and every tradition since time immemorial on this planet. The story of the Sirius and in the Egyptian, it's over and over and over again. And in the more modern era, Krishnamurti in his teachings that I was gifted to be able to go and attend in Bombay said, you're not fully alive until you're prepared to die in this moment. So that resurrection is possible in every moment if you're allowing yourself to do that. And what we mean by that, so you eloquently said, is the death of the ego to allow room for the spirit. So
the death of the ego and what no longer serves you. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So blessings for this time to have this conversation and have this discussion. So you don't have to be on your knees. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to be, all that is purely an option. I know that sounds strange, but it is truly an option. You can choose something different. And you're a living example of choosing something different. And sometimes, like you say, if you don't want to make that choice, you'll be taken to the edge and even to a near-death experience or even to reincarnation so you can repeat that experience and come back so that you can learn to surrender, right? So you can learn to let go. So very powerful. And then the last thing I wanted to say about all that was I love the way you compared, the Christic consciousness with Buddha. And I love it in the teaching of the Masters of Far East that says that Christ is enlightenment and Buddha is the path to enlightenment. So
absolutely.
The two,
I agree.
Are like two buddies on the other dimensions, right? One showed that it was possible in the human form, what resurrection meant, to have a body of light right here on planet Earth. Another showed you the path, how to get from where you are to that state of being. And yes, fasting and suffering is not necessarily the correct option, which Buddha was able to demonstrate, right?
Absolutely, I agree. And, it's throw another thing in here to go back to what you had talked about earlier, too, the Tao. Yeah. Lao Tzu channeled that, obviously, from Source, and that is absolutely another path that is buddies with Buddha and Jesus. I mean, my doctorate is in world religion and spirituality, and my doctoral thesis was what the underlying basis of all religions, all traditions is, which is love. And so for me, what was really beautiful several years ago now, it was in 2012 or something, when I was there in K-Town, I went through the Tao ceremony, and I ended up being the one who was put before the master. And it was very humbling. And it was, in essence, like a resurrection, because as you know, your old name is put in the Book of the Dead, and you are resurrected. And so to stand before the master and give him the gifts that I did, there were 11 other women. There were 12 of us who, which I find ironic as well, given, the 12 symbolism for me personally, as well as, Jesus, the 12 disciples. They were all standing with me, and the master had asked her, or somebody had asked, to have someone come before the master to give the gifts. And literally one of my friends pushed me forward. And I was like, whoa, and everybody else stepped back. And it was very, very humbling. It was a very humbling experience to stand before the master, because for me, that master wasn't a person. That master was God, was Source, was Jesus, was Buddha, was Krishnamurti, was all of the essences of what you were talking about, the beings that have been here on this earth and have shown us the way to resurrection, the way to Source itself. And so we are doing the modern version of this. There's no, as they say, there's nothing new under the sun. We're just reinventing, that of which the masters have brought forth, so that we can help people in this now moment.
Yeah, very eloquently described. So the Tao lineage that is being described here stretches through space and time, and it is an initiation that goes from master to master to master. And as we enter this white yang period, which we entered in 2008, it's now gone from one individual being passed down from the emperor to the emperor to the emperor, and then into the Lao Tzu, and further on down. We're now at the stage where everybody can receive the Tao. So everybody is now the Buddha. Everybody now is bringing about the great transformation on the planet, which is heaven on earth. So each of us have this responsibility. So receiving that lineage, that activation of the Tao or the Chinko vow, which I'm in the midst of having just taken, we're part of that lineage to bring about this new heaven on earth. We are the Buddhas, everyone here on the planet. The mere fact you incarnated and showing up on the front row seats of this great cosmic event means that you've done the work through past lifetimes to be showing up at this time. So even though you're suffering or may be in crisis, remember that there's thousands, literally millions of souls on the other dimensions looking for the opportunity to incarnate into the body to have this experience. And here you are. You're already here. So at one level, you've made it. So give yourself a break and enjoy the fact that you have the opportunity to make the correct choices to live in ease and grace. And this is your time in which you've been waiting for, and the planet's been waiting for you to show up. So we're excited to be able to offer this opportunity, either through Finding the Force program that's launching literally tomorrow, or the work that you're doing in your course. We're providing this opportunity, the stepping stones, to take you from where you are to where you want to go in the shortest amount of time, to help you bring yourself back into Source and live a life of ease, grace, and joy. And how about some bliss? I'm looking for a little bit of bliss. I think I want.
Amen.
I want a little bliss.
Amen. Amen. And absolutely, I agree with you.
I'm looking for bliss. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes. Absolutely. I feel that, in each moment. And that is something that Buddha also taught us. Bliss doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have things happening in our life. We can still be in a place of sadness, but still experience bliss. It's both and it's being in bliss of knowing that, I'm experiencing some sadness here, and it's okay.
And I don't have to do anything about it.
That's right. That's right. Just be with it. I mean, so many of us run to addictions and all sorts of, other things to avoid our pain, to avoid experiencing sadness. It's all a part of the human experience. You're not going to get out of it. It is. And in that, you can see the bliss in that sadness, in that grieving. And the Tao is absolutely beautiful. For me, it was a beautiful culmination of many years. I mean, I started at 7 years old reading the Tao and immersing myself in the Tao. And so for me, it was a very humbling experience and a culmination of my life, in a sense, with the Tao. And so I really honor and treasure that. And so, yes, we have, and somebody recently came to me knowing that I was getting ready to launch this course and wanted me to be a part of their group of ascended masters, so to speak. And their premise was coming forth and saying, we're trying to find the arrival of Jesus. And I'm like, well, just like you said, we all are Jesus. We all are God. We all are Buddha. We are the enlightened ones already. And that's not from a sense of ego. It's from a sense of an inner knowing. We are that Christ consciousness. So some person is not going to come and save us. You know, we are it. We are already that Buddha. We are already that Jesus. And so I very respectfully declined their invitation to be part of their group. But, you know, no judgment there. Just, you know, that's what it is for them. That's where they're at. But really, Jesus is already here. Buddha is already here in you, in me, in all of us.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way of putting it. You know, the Maitreya consciousness, or the coming Buddha, is really the collective consciousness of all of us coming together and bringing, you know, heaven on earth, allows that new dispensation, or however you want to describe it, to literally be complete. And, you know, how many lifetimes have we been doing this? For me, the Tao has been something that I can remember from multiple lifetimes. So when I discovered the Tao this time around, it was, oh, this feels familiar. I've been down this path before. So it was like coming home. Not that I don't love Buddhism or Christianity, and even studying Islam, and you know, living in Pakistan and understanding the Quran and being able to speak from that, or Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, or studying with, you know, Krishna Ji. All of that is, you know, our other paths, other, you know, to climb the mountain. But the beauty of the Tao for me is that unbroken lineage, that golden thread that from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, from master to master to master, and culminates in the masters of Far East for me too, which was the one that opened my consciousness up when I was in my 20s and read the Masters of Far East by Spalding. When I first opened that book, I had a decision to make. Either it was real or it wasn't, and I couldn't make that decision. I put it back on the shelf, said, I'm not ready to accept this as being true. And I only took it off the shelf and read it when I could accept the fact that this was true, that there were masters, and that they do walk on earth, and that we, each one of us, has the potentiality. And in fact, that's what we're here to do, is become the master, right? Is to bring the master consciousness, to be the master of bringing this through in this lineage at this time. So I'm really excited about the opportunity that you're providing people to attend your course. So tell us a little bit more about the course, what it entails. Why is it 8 weeks, did you say, or 6 weeks? How do people get hold of you, and all those good things? We have a fair amount of time, so don't rush. We have about 4 minutes to go. So take your time.
Well, the course is going to be available starting this coming weekend. And yes, it is a 6-week course. And what is going to be covered in it is some of the things we've actually been talking about, but obviously in a much deeper way, having to do with vibration and frequency, how to tune into the vibrational frequency of Source itself, how to channel Source, how to access the Akashic records, how to transform the RNA or the DNA, mutated DNA, into the RNA for people that you're going to do sessions for, what the difference is between the different levels of mediumship. That there's psychic mediumship, that's your basic level, all the way up to channeling Source or God. So these are some of the things that are going to be covered in the course. And it's going to be available on my website. I just haven't put it up there on the website yet. But for those who are interested, you can message me at my email, which is nenari@diamondlady.net, or go on to my 2 websites, diamondlady.net, and or soulsong, satsongoftheheart.net, and reach me through there as well, and through social media and whatnot. And I honor you for your beautiful OS, your operating system that you're bringing forth as well, Tyhson. I think it's fabulous that we're both in that same vibration of bringing such similar consciousness in our courses to help benefit humanity. And I look forward to seeing your course, and, you know, send it my way and I'll pass it on to my people that I'm connected to.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, it's www.findingtheforce.com. It's launching this Easter weekend, and it will be an evergreen program as well. We're excited about that. We're bringing Hermeticism and shamanism together as two of the fundamental principles that we'll be working with, both Eastern and Western. We both come from a lineage of First Nations traditional teaching. Mine is through the Mayan culture, and hers is through the Navajo and the Hopi and those traditions. So we're gifted with the opportunity of everything from pipe ceremony to sweat lodges to medicine wheel ceremonies to trips to work with my shaman that I work with in the Mayan Peninsula to go to sacred sites to do ceremonies, probably around the solstice or the equinox. We'll obviously going to the Grand Canyon to do ceremony with First Nations through her lineage. We're 40 years difference between us, so that's really exciting. It's like finding a soulmate who's on the same path. So it's exciting for us to meet each other. No disrespect for our current partners. We can't do what we're doing without our current partners, but we also have to do what we're called. So there's just another part that's interesting in all this, and I know this has not been easy for you too, between soulmates and who are you supposed to work with on planet Earth, and then how do you do the matchup, and how does it figure, and so it can get a bit complicated, but that's just the way it is. What we think relationships are is about to shift, and we have multiple relationships which do not disrespect or honor the previous relationships we have as we make this shift. So it's something to be aware of, that is that your soulmate, your counterpart, or what you're called to do on planet Earth may show up in the most unusual way that you didn't expect or out of the blue. And it may not be what you're thinking of. They may already have partners. They may be, like in my case, 40 years younger than me. That's just the way it is. The exciting thing is you get to meet each other and get to carry on the work that you're called to do. So that's another part of showing up on planet Earth and to the new operating system. So the other thing—
That's a whole other show we can
that's
talk
a whole
about.
other show. I mean, that's
Yeah. Twin souls, which is who you two are, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we got just a few minutes. So actually, we got about 4 minutes. So why don't you just, because I know this is dear to your heart, so just say a few things about twin souls.
You nailed it on the head. Twin soul relationship is, or is also called heart-centered connection, divine partnership, whatnot. It takes everything that you know about real relationships and throws it out the window and gets you into a real relationship. Yes, my path has been a 9-year journey with mine, and I'm still in connection with him, although we are on opposite sides of the globe at the present moment. That said, our work and our mission still continues regardless of being together. Like you said, sometimes there's a soul difference in age as far as earthly age. Soul age, though, you're the same. It's about being that same vibrational frequency match with your twin soul. And your twin soul, you share the same soul. So you can't run away from each other. You can't get away from each other. It's like twins on this earth. You know, you are connected. And so if there's a 40-year age difference, so be it. You still have a mission and purpose. And so my twin soul and we still have a mission and purpose. And my course actually does have some of his music for the meditations in it. He recently released an album, and I've used a track from it for it. And, you know, we still continue our work, even though we're not. So it's quite a beautiful path. And for you, it's most important that, you know, David Kamal and Matan, they're 23 years apart. So earthly age doesn't matter. I've said since I was 6 years old that in matters of the heart and spirit, age is just a number. So, you know, there you have it. But we could spend a whole show talking about twin souls and what they are and what they do and everything else. But you nailed it pretty good on the head there.
Well, it's been great to have you on the show, and I really enjoyed the time that we've had together. And guess what? We'll have to do it again.
Likewise. Absolutely.
So thank you for once again, and we'll catch up with you and have a great time in England and carrying on your mission, your studies, and your courses. And we'll be in touch.
Yes, definitely. Likewise. And thank you. I honor you, and I appreciate having the time to be on your show.
Blessings on the path.
Blessings. Namaste and estado.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.